Welcome to Baseball Biz on Deck. I am Mark Corbett, your host, and my other host, of course, is Mr. Matt Germain. How you doing, buddy?
I'm really happy I got to get some sun recently, so I feel energized, Mark. I feel like I have a boost. Even though the rays tried to drain those rays out of my body, I replenished them with new ones.
Did you turn all the media off and say, I'm not going to listen to these games. I'm not going to see what's happening in Detroit. I'm just going to just stay away from that.
Yeah, it was a little bit of peeking. It was peeking like, oh, how's it going now? Oh, well, what happened here? Oh, well, so I
Uh,
wasn't watching the games, but I was more or less paying attention to what the flow was.
right. So before today, we were, I think, 3 wins and 7 losses for the last 10 games. We turned that today. Thank you, God. I mean, it might as well have been a prayer because it's been sad. I mean, we've seen this team do so well, and we knew coming into Detroit it was going to be tough. I mean, here's the team they're leading between both leagues. They are at the top. Dodgers, they're second shelf, and there's going to be a challenge. But I got to tell you, watching the second game of that series, it was hard, Matt. It was really hard. I don't know about for you, but I'm sitting there and I'm looking at the stats as the game progresses. I said, "Oh, let's see. We've had 8 hits. Okay, the other team has 4 hits. Oh, what else have we done? From the mound, we help them out from the mound. Oh, five, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, six walks and 3 hit by pitches. Come on, man.
I think the important thing to remember is there's a lot of positives leading up to that, right? So there was a big the Rays were the talk of the town for June. Let's
Yeah.
face it, they were opening up a lot of eyes. So anybody that watches baseball long enough knows there's going to be dips and valleys, and even I remember last year, I think, or might have been the year before, where I watched the Dodgers go through a stretch where they were swept by the Rockies and then lost 2 or 3 from the A's, and the world was ending in Los Angeles, essentially. So every team goes through it. The question, I think, and the positive that I want to draw from it, really, and you can speak to this, is it opens up the weaknesses that the Rays need to address before the deadline. So now they know that they have soft spots and they
Oh yeah.
can work to address them. And to be honest, I'm glad they made some, I'm sure what were difficult moves to make. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think they wanted, for example, to send Mason Montgomery down with his 100-mile-an-hour lefty fastball and bring up Ian Seymour and put him in a different role. I don't think that was ideal, but they did it because they felt like that wasn't working and they needed to work on something else. And they brought Mason Englert back and they brought, the other positive I'll note is that yesterday Manuel Rodriguez threw an inning and it was clean. And that was in AAA. So if he can return, that is a huge boost to the Rays pen because between him and Eric Orrs, then you have, two guys that are pretty much lights out from the right side, and it lowers the pressure on Kevin Kelly and a couple of the other guys.
Orz and Uceta both, though, have had a little bit of difficulty this week. But as you mentioned, the game of baseball, you wax and you wane in this game. Rarely do you play 162 games, and you certainly don't as a pitcher, and maintain a highest level of performance. But I got to say, I am really excited about this team, Matt. I've looked across the entire lineup, and the bottom of the lineup the last couple of games has been healthy. They've done well. All right, but for one, let's pick Mangum. Jake Mangum. I love watching this guy.
Yeah, he's earned the nickname, which I love. Yeah. So go ahead.
No, I was going to say, what I like about him too is I'm saying something is tickling the back of my memory. He said, "Who does this guy remind you of?" Joey Wendle, because of the commitment. You see that man on the field that he does. There is a intensity, to him. I feel like every player is committed to the games in Major League Baseball, but that man shows more so, I think, than many. And it's amazing to watch him play. I thought he was going to tear out his shoulder today to catch a ball.
It's a great point, Mark, because I can remember sitting here last year, and part of the things that irritated us about Jose Siri, Randy Arozarena, a lot of the other guys that were with the Rays, is the relaxed nature and the lackadaisical kind of attitude on occasion that can rub you the wrong way when they make misplays here and there. And they were spotty, and they were not, constant like throughout the season, but they were numerous enough that it led to the Rays being susceptible to downfalls in moments when they probably shouldn't have had them. So I think between Jake Mangum and Chandler Simpson, both, and even Kevin Meisner before them, they never took plays off. They kind of set the standard, and it's weird because they're rookies. So you're expecting this from your veterans, right? Like Joey Wendle, like the guy that you mentioned, like that was just normal. It was normal Joey. He's going to show up every day. He's going to do his work. He's going to be professional, and that's it. So I do agree that what's kept the Rays consistent this year, and I think we're at 50 wins now. So before the All-Star break, getting to that level is good. Um, is the fact that the veterans haven't had to carry the load in terms of the energy. So, and they've been energized by the young guys showing the way in that front, right? And Junior Caminero hitting his 22nd home run in the week that he turned 22. I mean, how many guys actually matched their age before the All-Star break in home runs? So between all of that put together, it's like a big mix of warmth, and you do enjoy it. I agree that it's a great feeling to have before the All-Star break.
It is, like I said, seeing him, and you mentioned Chandler Simpson. My gosh, I love watching that young man steal the bases or work on it. However, I do have to give Brian Anderson a little bit of a shot. The announcer. And I was watching the game, and he's there, and he's talking about Chandler's record, and he says, "Well, for the last 45 at bats, Chandler has not been struck out once." And it's like, dude, why don't you go talk on somebody's no hitter while you're at it?
Yeah.
Bam. Okay. Next time up, Chandler struck out.
Oh man, I'm sure he felt bad when he realized it
Oh, he
too.
did. He kind of berated himself for the next two innings about it, but and Andy Freed wasn't going to let up on him either, so it worked out pretty well. But watching Chandler, my gosh, again, it goes to, you're talking about the youth of the team, the energy they're bringing. So it's not like the veterans are having to carry all of this weight on their shoulders. No, I definitely think Chandler's a big part of that, and the excitement that this team has stealing bases this year is just adds a whole other dimension to the game.
They're bringing back old school baseball, which I think the commissioner should love. Like I can remember the last 9 years, or since Neander's been in, pretty much the Rays have been breaking rules from old school baseball, whereas this year they flipped the script and they've gone and become the model franchise when it comes to how to play old school baseball, which is just, it's kind of crazy how it's gone full circle. So, and I look at the Rays lineup today, like managers in the 80s would have drooled for this kind of lineup where the sixth and seventh hitter are hitting over 300. They have three hitters hitting above 310 now, I think, or thereabouts. They have, four guys with power, double digits power before the All-Star break. They have a lot of guys that can do anything in terms of bunting, running, everything else that you want a guy to do, which makes them professional baseball players. Right? So, and they're all fairly strong defensively on top of it. So, I mean, this is one of those special teams where everything is coming together to the point where you have to wonder how aggressive the Rays are going to be at the trade deadline and adding, and where specifically they're going to decide to inject, strength. Watching I think
that's what I was going to ask you. Do you think bullpen wise we're needing some help there?
I do, but like we have another guy in the FCL that's rehabbing, which is Shane McClanahan, and he threw a clean inning yesterday. So if he's able to come back, like we've already seen Drew Rasmussen go in for 2 innings and start to do that almost long opening role, right?
Right.
Whereas Joe Boyle comes in behind him. I think that's why they brought in Ian Seymour as well, because they're going to do it with other guys. They might do it with Pepio, they might do it with Taj Bradley, just to minimize their length of innings pitched. So it leads to the question, okay, well then at that point, are you considering them relievers Or are they just longish relievers that, so now you're playing. I remember this is something clear in my mind when I think about this, Mark. So the Blue Jays, when they were bringing up Noah Syndergaard and Aaron Sanchez, this is a ways back, they were using the piggyback option basically. So Noah Syndergaard would start the game, Aaron Sanchez would do the other half. So basically 4 innings one guy, 4 innings the other. Then you bring in your closer, and that's the way they ran it, and it worked great. So there's nothing to say the Rays can't go that route, right? Where they have guys throw 3 or 4 innings at a time and they piggyback off of each other, which, you do have to make sure that the guys are comfortable coming in the third or fourth inning instead of starting. So that's the caveat or the catch. But I don't think you're going to hear any rumbling from a minor league pitcher who gets a chance to throw in the show, right? So that's where the Rays luck out on that front. And they have the talent and the depth to do it, to be honest. The only other things I'll throw out is Yoniel Curet is also back in Double-A now, and he could walk on the field tomorrow and be really, really outstanding in the pen, just stuff wise. So, a few more weeks or 3, 4 more weeks of that, you never know. So they have internal options to sit, just to start there. The other thing that I'll say is that nobody's dealt any major, talent when it comes to relievers. So there's like the wide open field as to who you want to go and get.
Well, it's funny you say that because I was looking at, I think it was the Athletic Pulse, and Chris Branch wrote, the trade deadline might be a dud. MLB's expanded playoff format means more teams are in the hunt for a postseason spot, which means fewer teams are giving up at the halfway point. Fewer sellers means fewer trades, which is a good thing for competitive baseball and a bad thing for trade deadline intrigue. I'm okay with it, but we should just temper expectations come July 31st. And that's from Chris Branch with the Athletic Pulse.
So I would throw out there like a caveat to that. Like the Rays last year, I don't think anybody really anticipated them being sellers. And they took a strong look in the mirror and decided that even though their record could have supported a push the other way, that it was better for them to take a step back and to load up the system and really give it a go thereafter. I think you're going to have franchises do that. And I'll give a couple examples, like the Texas Rangers. The Texas Rangers are in a spot where they're sort of, they first of all, they have the hangover effect, and then they have the uh, bunch of guys that are coming back from injury. They have guys that are veterans that are probably well known and well liked by a lot of different teams. They also have budget crunches. So all of those things combined forces a team to kind of stare in the mirror and say, okay, well, what do we want to do? And you also have guys like the competition. You have to bet for other teams to slump in some cases. And like right now, we're close to having 4 AL East teams in the playoff picture. If the Mariners lose today, I think the Red Sox win, they end up being 4 AL East teams. So you're talking about a huge chunk of the American League after that that's looking up, going, well, how many of those AL East teams are going to slump between now and the end of the season to the point where we can catch up and pass them and stay ahead of them? So those are big bets for them to make, and I think there's enough injuries and enough question marks that there'll be some surprise sellers essentially.
I know, pardon me, I know recently you posted about the Blue Jays doing so well lately. I know right now what they face the White Sox here in their current grouping here. White Sox beat them today. Ooh, 2-1. Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, go ahead.
no, that's it.
Yeah, the Blue Jays, Mark, they're in a dangerous position. I'll tell you why. Because things are going so well leading up to the trade deadline that I think they may invest in the wrong areas, if that makes sense. So assume that the trade deadline passes and your pitching falls apart in August, right? All right. Where does that leave the Blue Jays in terms of depth when it comes to starting pitching? And I think that's the nail in the coffin of their season if they're not careful. So the Blue Jays should be adding a lot of, AAA / long relief can become a starter after kind of depth. They may do that. But I have a feeling that instead they're going to focus on adding a bat because everybody likes to rip apart their lineup. They have some older guys like Springer who tends to get injured here and there. So, there's pressure on them to add a little bit of offense more so. And their pen is a little bit susceptible as well because Eric Swanson, a bunch of other guys, you know, had some failures this year earlier. So, um, yeah, but they are a scary team because when they do get hot, and if their pitching is healthy, they can, make your life miserable as a team, especially in a 7-game series.
I did want to go and talk about the All-Star games coming up.
Yeah.
And I was surprised today. I mean, I knew we had two guys and then found out we got a third who's going to be in the All-Stars. So 3 Tampa Bay Rays will be there. I wasn't surprised at the first two. I was a little surprised with the third, but pleasantly, but still surprised. And to that point, who we're looking at? Brandon Lowe. Brandon Lowe, whose name was misspoken by Buck when he went into the All-Star game the last time in 2019. I think they'll have his name right this time. Jonathan Aranda. My gosh, that guy's magic. Now, I knew he wasn't going to make it the first time through because it's dependent upon fans to vote. And with the smaller fan base that the Rays have, they aren't going to get him all the way up at the very top. But he's in there as well as he deserved. If he wasn't in there or Brandon, I would have just had a fit and gone nuts. Yeah, you always, I go in there and virtually every guy on our team, that's who I'm putting in when I'm selecting as a fan. But I would, if it was anybody I was not going to omit, I mean, those would have been the two, Brandon and Jonathan. And then today we get the news that Junior Caminero is joining them.
Yes.
I thought, well, where's he coming in? Oh, he's more than reserve. He's replacing an injured player, replacing Alex Bregman. So,
Yep.
ooh, there's a certain little cachet on that too, brother. I mean, it's
Deserves it more even than Alex Bregman did. I think Alex is doing it based on his past, whereas Junior is doing it more on this year.
yeah. I'd have to say that it just Junior. And as we were talking earlier, you mentioning that, here he is, he's 22 years of age and hit his 22nd home run today. And he's going to share that ability with us to be able during the home run derby of the All-Stars. My goodness, brother. Are you ready for it?
Dude, I don't know what he's going to do, but if there's somebody like Wander Franco liked the spotlight as much as anybody, but Junior Caminero has a certain presence about him where he's going to love this spotlight and want to show that power. It's such an easy power that he could do a lot of damage in this home run derby. I'm not a betting man, but if I was to put a couple of bucks down on somebody, I would want to put them on Junior just to enjoy the ride with him when he goes. You never know though, because it could end up being a dud. I think, what is it? Bobby Abreu one year just went nuts during the home run derby and nobody saw it coming. I could see that kind of outbreak from Junior Caminero in this one.
It's going to be a lot of fun, folks. I'll tell you what, if you haven't seen him enough already, if you're not a Rays fan, he would make you one. So watching the energy, which again, young energy. And I think, because he is so young, he's going to be in that moment. He's going to enjoy all the surroundings of all those All-Stars and be in the moment of the All-Star game, being out there in the home run derby. And I think we'll see that on his face and his performance. So I'm really excited about that.
I want to make one more note about the All-Star game, Mark. So the Rays traded away Isak Paredes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to be in the All-Star game as well as one of the players that made the team. So the Rays literally traded away a third baseman, which made the All-Star game, and have a new one to make the All-Star game. That's pretty impressive for a team like the Rays to be able to have that. And if you could actually have Isak Paredes at third, Junior Caminero at first, Jonathan Aranda at second. Oh no, we can't play Brandon now at short. I was trying to make a whole infield. I was like, it's not gonna work. I think Junior would have to go to shortstop.
Oh, I was a little bit of homework. You mentioned Isak, and I always loved watching him, man. I was sad to see him go, but things always seem to work out. But Paredes being a third baseman,
Mhm.
and also another one, third baseman who made it into the All-Stars, and that was Evan Longoria. So there's another Tampa Bay Ray for third baseman who's made it into the All-Star game. But yeah, it's fun, brother. It's Paredes was fun to watch. Jeez.
Yeah, it's interesting when you think back of the Rays' history, how strong third base has always been for them. Like generally, even Joey Wendle, you could say when he was playing for the Rays, he was doing really well. Mike Brasso had a couple of really excellent years, and they've always been strong at the hot corner. So that's something that I kind of like would look at the entire history of the Rays and see where they rank in terms of third base production.
We'll have to put that up for another show.
Mhm.
One of the things we did want to talk about maybe is the snubs. And I guess the one that most people are complaining about is Juan Soto.
Yeah. So how much do you need to pay a player to get him into the All-Star game? That's the big question there, right? Like he had a rough time starting out the year, and Albert Pujols will speak to this. Like that when you sign a contract that big and you put that much weight on your shoulders, weird things are going to happen mentally where you're trying to do too much all at once instead of just being yourself. So I think that's what makes Cal Raleigh's run so impressive because he signed a big deal with the Mariners and he's able to. I've never seen a catcher perform like this before. I don't think ever. So yeah, I think that that's definitely a snub on in terms of we know the caliber of player that Juan Soto is. And if he was playing at his best, then we know he is most definitely an all-star. But the other ones, like I mean, you could go up and down the line in terms of, the guys that you feel are playing the best at a certain position and probably would deserve to be. But I think, does MLB have a rule where they have to have a representative from each team?
That is correct. They do have that as a rule because I felt like maybe some teams would have been omitted. And so I'm kind of glad that they have that rule in there because the smaller market teams, I think, could have just got overwhelmed and pushed aside in many cases. So, yes, that's a rule.
Exactly. So in a lot of cases, we say snubs, but in reality, they're just not playing for the right team.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you got that right. So yeah, I know when you start putting up fences around here, oh, you can do this or you can't do that, and oh, we're going to have the hat fans, and we're going to weigh their votes this much. We're going to have the players' votes weigh this much, and the owners, et cetera. It gets to be insane. I'll be quite honest with you. I do love the All-Star game. I do love the Hall of Fame, but I also know as far as the architecture to pull some of those things together, sometimes I'm just scratching my head, say, really? But
I wish that we took a page more out of Japan. I think they have more skills competitions in Japan for their All-Star game. So they'll have like bunting drills where you're trying to get the ball bunted into a circle or something like that, or a target of some sort. I can't remember exactly how it works. You're trying to get a hit in each direction, like or something like that, or there's a whole bunch of different ways throwing from across the diamond, like trying to get it into a target there. Things like that, like just to show off more skills than just the home run. Like you wonder why players gravitate to the home runs. Well, that's the only thing you show in the All-Star game that everybody gravitates to, and it's the only thing that gets players paid to the highest level. So if you're going to change the game, you want to make it more exciting, you know what? Like have some guys running first to third and clock it and make that, the next, go-to thing. Now, when they pull up with a hamstring injury after the All-Star game, you're going to have a lot of teams that are going to be angry. So you do have to kind of measure that a little bit in terms of what games you choose. But I don't think bunting or hitting or even throwing across the diamond or from the outfield to the plate and trying to get it in, at the fastest speed. I don't think those are injury prone kind of drills to go through. So there would be a lot of fun, and I think we need more of that. And I also think it'd be nice to change it up at some point or do something different where you have retired players that recently retired, let's say, right? Within the last 10 years, going up against the rookies, like the prospects. right? And having the game be that instead of prospects versus prospects. Like to
That
me,
could be
that would be
fun.
a lot of fun.
Well, yeah, because they would have favorite players from the past out there.
Rubbing
Eh,
shoulders too, right? Like
Yeah.
they're transferring some of their knowledge and getting them, excited about the past and the future all at the
Jeez.
same time.
I like that, Matt. Got to put that one together. You know, I'm expanding what I'm watching for sports a little bit these days. One of them is was it Athletes United Softball League, and that's happening right now.
Mhm.
And I wonder about it as far as the women's teams, and wondering what kind of money they're going to make. Well, they're making $40,000 to $45,000 is about what they're making through this season. So it's not chump change. It's not, what you're going to be paying in MLB, but it's something more than just, hey, we got bus money and here's something for lunch. It's a little more than that. So I'm glad to see this. And you're looking at, I'm seeing some of these names, some of the top talents from like Oklahoma's team, maybe USF's team, Kentucky's team. So players who've done that. Some of these are women who've actually gone on and become coaches and directors elsewhere, but are coming in to be part of this. So it is going to be something that I'm going to spend a little more time watching. There's also coming up tryouts in Washington, and I don't have the dates for the new women's baseball league, and that's going to be something to see.
So I've been paying attention to stadiums as well and arena rebuilds or refurbishments, I guess you could call them. Like, so I was watching the video on how the Mammoths are working their way into the Jazz facility there in Utah. And what always comes to mind when you're mentioning the women's game, and I think I've talked to you about this before, where it's an opportunity for MLB, even with softball and any baseball league, to get involved and draw them into your stadiums. Like all of these arenas that the NBA and the NHL are a part of have an advantage over all other leagues in that they can actually share the facilities at the highest levels. And so they're recuperating and using that facility way more. And there's a business part of that. Not only are your concession stands and businesses a lot happier and more consistent, they can provide better services, they can ensure more long-term employment for the employees that are there. There's a more community feeling. There's just a lot to go around. So I don't understand why baseball to this point, and I know they're slow to change, Mark. They've always been the last to the line, basically, in terms of change. But they should be inviting and honestly leading the charge when it comes to establishing a women's league in both baseball and softball, and really adding men's softball as well in all forms, right? They could do all of them. You have the stadiums. These stadiums don't get beat up that much. And the fielding crews are really good. They can actually maintain these things. You can set up certain rules where they can't, to go around working the chewing tobacco all over the outfield, whatever you want to do to make sure that they're not tearing the place apart. But even though it would seem like there's not many people in the stands in a lot of cases, the point is that you're giving them the venue to grow so
Mhm.
that eventually those seats will become full. And it's up to them to come up with marketing ideas to fill those seats. But at least at a minimum, you're giving them the opportunity, giving them access also to some of the logistics that they need in terms of broadcasting, cameras, radios, all of those things that cost a lot of money and people underrate when you're starting a league. But also, like, so let's say they do grow to a certain point, right? I don't know how it's working out in the WNBA and how separate they are from the NBA, but all of those owners of the NBA teams, I'm positive right now, would love to have a stake or ownership of one of those WNBA teams because they are extremely valuable, right? So those MLB owners right now should be looking at that going, well, do we get in before it gets big, or do we end up buying in after it's going to cost us a bundle of money? So that's the option they basically have. So you know what? Be a little bit more forthright and dare yourself to actually lead the way in promoting your sport, because MLB owners are not only in charge of the team, they're in charge of the sport and promoting it globally and
Right.
around the states and everywhere, and all, you know, sexes involved as well. So yeah, that's my little soapbox speech on that. Mark.
Well, it's interesting too because I had worked a little bit with with the American girls baseball as far as the tournaments the last few years, and they were Sarasota for a couple of years, and they did Durham last year.
Mhm.
And the Durham organization wasn't just, I mean, it wasn't that they were just using facilities. Durham was actually picking up the project from Sousa Pay, who was one of the original All American Girls Professional Baseball League players. And they were starting to take, I don't know, ownership's the correct word, but managing and putting it together. So they have a stake in it. And I'm not sure how that's going to play out, Matt, because if one, we got the softball league coming up, which of course that's what our good friend Mr. Manfred endorsed, softball over baseball. And then we've got the baseball league coming up next year. There's gonna be some tryouts, and then we still have the American girls baseball. There are so many leagues upon leagues out there, and I hope we can find some cohesiveness to build us a strong women's league. And whatever that may be, that may be what's happening, right now with those tryouts. We won't know until next year. But it's the business of baseball and finding things that complement one another, especially a women's baseball team. If they're using the same dimensions that the men are on the field, you don't have to have a separate field. You don't
Right.
have to have bases at different lengths or the mound at a different length from home plate. So there's a sense about it there. And I don't know if this is the time to segue into it or not. What do you think?
Well, you're gonna declare that you're gonna be a broadcaster for one of their teams?
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to be the broadcaster at the News Race Stadium with a new owner. They've just signed me on, and I'm looking at that, and also have an offer from Washington to be the general manager at the moment. So I'm kind of trying to figure out which one I want to
Well, know
do
what we're
right now,
doing
Matt.
here, Mark. It's time for you to go.
Oh, there's so much movement. I think I can't remember, it's 4 or 5 managers now that have bit the dust in Major League Baseball. And this year, also we've had general manager go. Oftentimes it's like, maybe the real problem is with the general manager, because a lot of times the manager can only work with the tools that the general manager and the owner allow them to have. So I think you may have said something about that, because when we're looking at the business of baseball right now, the Rays has been in a quandary for some time now about ownership, about where they're going to play, uh, all of these things. You're hearing about new buyers coming in from Jacksonville, and then all just kind of disappears. The number 1.75 billion is the worth of the team. All these things are out there, and I haven't seen any dust settling yet, but. Didn't you say something about Eric Neander today and all this rigmarole?
In terms of,
In terms of, since I've thrown so much out there, of this combination salad of baseball, that with the Nationals
mhm,
moving on, looking for a new manager.
right. Oh, I said so. I think Mike Rizzo is the guy that I think will get snatched up pretty quickly from other teams. So I was saying that the Rockies should be looking to bring him in just to rejuvenate their franchise, because I think Mike Rizzo knows a lot about the structure of a team to be successful in terms of how they need to bring in talent, when they need to be aggressive, and when they need to be more relaxed and
Right.
more patient. And the Rockies just haven't had any direction whatsoever. So they've been rudderless in their area, and they've kind of just been, blindfolded, throwing darts at a board and hoping some of them stick, but they never actually have a plan that'll work for their situation. And I think theirs is unique, and Mike Rizzo will be intelligent enough to actually get that going. It's hard to blame owners very easily, right? It's hard to build a front office that works and have some patience and watching them do their thing. I think Los Angeles Angels and the Rockies are two examples of owners that have been uber aggressive because they're passionate, but probably too passionate and not letting some of the people actually guide the team the way that they would have liked to have done if the owner wasn't as vocal. Now, that we don't know how many other owners are more vocal probably than those ones, but it's just what we know, and the success rates that they have are really painful to watch. So I think that that's always the caveat to any franchise firing managers or front office personnel. You have Heim Bloom that's still sitting out there that rubbed shoulders with the Rays for a long time, and you can see the work that he did in Boston paying off now. All those young guys that he had cultivated up to that point, bearing fruit. So, there's two options for the Rockies to dive into. So why are you sitting on the sidelines and sitting still if you have those options to walk through? I'd also note the Nationals are going through a lot of changes
Oh, yeah.
because their manager, their GM, and their broadcaster is retiring after this year. Bob Carpenter, who I interviewed a couple of years ago, and is a great guy, just a great personality. I've never heard somebody be so forthright and angry about not being able to call playoff games. And he just hates that rule in Major League Baseball, that they actually use national broadcasters when the playoffs come around. And I completely agree with him. I think that that's a rule that needs to be changed at some point, and they need to not only cherish and promote local broadcasters on a national stage when those kinds of things happen. Again, it's an opportunity for MLB to promote the game, right? And they have ways to allow you to listen to whichever broadcast you prefer, right? To give people options. They won't complain as much. But all that to say that Nationals fans who saw their team, get sold are suddenly looking at a pretty significant changeover. Like you could actually say, is that where the Rays end up in a few years? When they have a new owner and they have changes happen if things go badly for a certain point of time, right? So it's something that I hope it turns out well. I hope the Nationals hire good people to replace them down the road. But the Rockies should benefit. The A's should look into it as well, and a couple of other franchises that may want a change on their own as well.
Well, baseball is all about change, and the deadline coming up here at the end of July. We're going to see what other changes are coming. So it was interesting. The one fellow thought it was going to be a dud, but I think teams are going to realize they do have needs, and there will be changes made. I think that he was probably a little overwhelmed with the possibility of dullness.
Writers should be writing about why the draft is going to be a dud. I'm
Let's
watching
talk about that.
I'm watching people promote the draft, right? And I'm like, why would I watch this? Like, I'm a passionate fan, and I probably won't watch half of it because I know the teams are going to pick where they're picking. And I know there's not going to be trades, and I know there's not going to be. So, why would I bother to sit there and watch the draft if there's not going to be any action and any surprises? People like surprises, right? If it's too predictable, yeah, sure, you get to see but I can look at the rankings and know, okay, well, they're going to select somebody of this caliber, this caliber, this caliber, this caliber. There's not going to be any trades, any move up. They're not going to acquire somebody because we are still within the trade deadline. So they're not going to combine things to go get a guy and add a draft pick, right? So I watched the NHL draft. It was fun. All of a sudden, they'd have this big thing, a loud event. It was literally like thunder, and people were like, "Oh, what's going on?" And it was a trade, and they announced the trade, and it was, players that were actually on the team, not just draft picks that are changing hands, and it's like chaos. So it draws you in, and all the fans were like cheering, and it was like a joyous exercise. You go to a Major League Baseball draft, and it's like a mortuary. They're basically just walking up to the thing going, oh, yay, yeah, okay, next. Okay, next time. That's it. Like there's no oomph.
Jeez.
So I really, 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 really hope Major League Baseball starts treating their teams like grown-ups. I know it's hard, but let
Yeah.
go of the leash, man. Just let them be teams, build up the action and suspense.
I'm with you there. I mean, when it comes to draft days, I'll just watch the movie
Mhm.
Kevin Costner and with what happens with the NFL, and to me that's exciting because I get to see what's going on, all these back rooms and what's happening there. Those so give me the fiction, I guess, instead of the boring reality of the MLB. So draft that is anyway.
You're touching on a good point, though. What if they had cameras in each room, right? And like not to the point where they're so good you can read lips in terms of what they're saying, but just to see if any of them are pushing each other against the wall and causing ruckus because they want a certain guy and the guy's not buying in and they're trying to get their guy selected, right? Like, I don't know how you would build that up, Mark.
I like it though. I tell you what.
But it's like an insider thing, sort of like, or they can just this like show it afterwards so that you get to see. But probably a lot of teams would feel like it exposes a lot of their things that they probably don't want their teams to know. Yeah,
Oh
this idea
goodness.
were pitched right away, Mark.
As long as we're being critical of things, I got to tell you, I'm not a Wimbledon guy, but watching what happened this past week with their automatic systems being able to say if a ball is in or out on a serve or being played, and their automated system didn't work. And it wasn't the failure of the system of itself. It was somebody forgot to turn the damn thing on. And it's like, you know, oh gosh. So gone are the line judges who used to stand there and look straight down that line from Wimbledon to see that. And there's an automated system, but you got to remember to turn it on. But so it makes me think, of course, about the automated, balls and strikes system, what
Mhm.
that's going to look like. And we just got to make sure that in MLB, we have people who can turn that switch and turn it on, brother. So,
I'm surprised it's taking this long, but I'm glad that it's happening. I think it'll be sort of like the replay kind of thing I foresee, like in terms
yeah.
of you get a certain number of calls to kind of uh, try to get back. And from what I've seen in AAA, it's working great. Like nobody, if anything, it takes pressure off the umpires because it diffuses a lot of those tense moments where there's contentious calls being made. And so it gives them that opportunity to get that sorted out and then they all move on. And so there's less of that, need to get angry at the umpires. I don't know if you feel the same way, but I feel like the anger towards umpires this year has been way lower than it's been in the past. And I think it'll keep getting lower the more we introduce these systems because people are getting the calls right eventually. Nobody's expecting the umpires to be perfect all the time. I know they expect it from themselves,
Right.
but nobody human and somewhat intelligent can expect somebody in those close touch bang bang plays or at a certain speed to be able to get those calls right 100% of the time. So I'm glad that things are getting sorted out because all you want in the end is the right outcome to be decided and then go forward.
Now, I did like, we did have that during spring training. And if you were there and you wanted to call, you patted your helmet,
Mhm.
just like Taylor Walls. And poor Taylor, I mean, they got him an ejection during the regular season. But no, I do like it. I do think it's going to be good. And I think here's another thing. Wimbledon does not have video replay. So you remember, like I said, they told them, oh, you have to play that again. We're just going to take that little piece of history, extract it all that you did in that last serve or play, and you're going to have to do it again. Man, could you imagine, Matt, if we told a player, hey, you know what? First base umpire couldn't really tell if you swung or not. So you got to do that again.
Yeah. The other thing I would say is I'm glad that the sign wasn't just them grabbing their crotch because there'd be
Oh,
a lot of baseball players getting that call way too early in the game. I'm often asked, like, why are they always doing that? I said, it's the uniforms. It's just the uniforms. That's what they do. Uh,
oh, brother. Oh, well, you got any other fun you want to talk about this week?
No, just saying that the rehabs are complete for a lot of Rays, prospects coming through that are it's nice to see them rejuvenate the pitching at all levels. But the Rays system is going through a little bit of a tough stretch right now where a lot of them are in downturns and I'm not exactly sure why. But the draft is coming up and we're going to see a lot of injection of talent in the system. And then what that'll lead to is a lot of promotions. So we're going to see a lot of promotions. This is the time of year for trades. This is the time of year for the draft and the All-Star game. So a lot of baseball to talk about, a lot of baseball to go around. Go out and support your minor league baseball teams and enjoy the weather because the weather's been outstanding for baseball, Mark. Well, I say that I know there's a wet period there in a lot of the southeast, but yeah, just go enjoy it when you can.
Yeah, and if you're here in Florida, you can still go to all those great spring training fields and watch the Florida Complex League and see, the up and coming. So there's a lot of fun there as well as regular games. And so I agree with you 100% there, Matt. And I want to remind, one other thing before I forget, my brother and I are going to go to Williamsport and see the World Series, the Little League World Series this year. So
Awesome.
yeah,
I'm
yeah. So
color me jealous. That's awesome.
so if any of y'all have any recommendations, send them my way, and I'd love to hear it. But looking forward to that. A whole lot of things going on this year. There's stuff with the International Women's Baseball Week coming up, and I'll put some things on uh, Blue Sky and also on Facebook about that too. So just a little reminder there. Well, Matt, I can't thank you enough, brother. It's good to see you back. I'm glad you made it through the woods just fine, and glad you and the fam had a good time.
We had an excellent time. Thank you very much for having me back. It's great to be back.
You're always here, brother. Take care.
You too, buddy.
Well, thank you all again for joining us here today, Mr. Matt Germain, and I'm Mr. Mark Carbett, and we'll bring Baseball Biz on deck back with you next week.
And just a reminder, if you enjoyed this show, go ahead, like, and subscribe to Baseball Biz on Deck. Also, you can find Matt at matgermain.bskysocial. That's Matt at matgermain.bskysocial, or Mark at baseballbizondeck@gmail.com. You may also find Baseball Biz on Deck at iHeart Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, and at baseballbizondeck.com. Special thanks to Scott Holmes for the music, stomps, and claps.